dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program Africa Today. In today's edition, we are going to talk about the preparatory meetings ahead of the Arab League meetings. And we'll start with the Algerian Foreign Minister Ramatan Lamamra, who calls for doubling the African efforts in light of the current challenges. He was speaking after receiving the rotating presidency of the Arab League's Council preparatory meetings in Algeria.
Preparatory meetings of the Arab League Council are taking part in Algeria. The ministerial meetings come within the framework of preparing for the 31st regular session of the Arab Summit, which will be held in early November. Shukri is heading an Egyptian delegation to the preparatory meetings. After receiving the rotating presidency of the preparatory meeting, Algerian Foreign Minister Ramatan Lamamra called for doubling Arab efforts in the light of the current challenges. In his speech before the meeting, Lamamra tackled the repercussions of the international epidemic coronavirus, which was followed by the Ukrainian-Russian crisis, with both crises hitting the Arab economy. The meeting, which was attended by Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Gheit, tackled the agenda and the draft resolutions which will be presented to the summit.
To shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Bayoumi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, how are you?
How are you, sir? Ambassador Bayoumi, addressing the preparatory meeting of the Arab League Council, Algerian Foreign Minister Lamamra called for doubling the Arab efforts in light of the current challenges. What challenges rock the Arab, North African and African regions from the global challenges from your point of view, sir?
This is a very important summit because really the whole world is not in a good health. The region is not in a good health also. So this is a very important meeting. I hope that they can come to a sort of consensus to build an Arab position concerning our international and regional and bilateral problems. We have, of course, the results of the war in Ukraine, which is affecting all our economies. Yes. We have the problems in our region. Turkey is occupying part of Syria. Turkey is occupying part of Iraq. Turkey is intervening in the east part of the Mediterranean and threatening our gas explosion. And Syria is not in good health, neither Lebanon, neither Libya. Yemen is suffering, Sudan is suffering. So thank God that at least the 6 Gulf states, plus Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia are in good health. So we hope that this conference will try, of course, to build our position in order to see how we are going to face all these problems. We are really facing problems and we are up to it. I hope this will bring more and more efforts. Also in the field of bilateral relations, because the intra-Arab trade is good but not good enough. The intra-Arab investment is good but not good enough. All these challenges we have to face in this conference, inshallah.
Inshallah. Sir, what steps here would be taken in order to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 and the Ukrainian crisis on the economy of the developing and the underdeveloped world?
I think that the Egyptian experience is very good here. And
yes.
As you well know, it is everywhere in the world the economic development is becoming negative.
Yes.
Whether in the States or Europe and China. Egypt among only 5 countries in the whole world which is developing positively. This is good. Why? Because we took the courageous decision to start our economic reform in November 2016. So we are facing the epidemic or the war in Ukraine standing on relatively strong feet. So this experience, it must have many details which we can share with our partners And among them, it is the good policies of our financial policies, our monetary policies, which some of us is suffering, but it is like any medicine. It tastes not good. It doesn't taste good, but after all, it is the remedy. It is the medicine.
Yes. Sir, any attempt here to deal with the economic and food crises means finances. How can financing for measures to get out of the crises be provided from your point of view here?
We are trying to behave rationally.
Yes.
I mean, we try to save money. We are trying to collect more money in order to finance our budget.
Yes.
And by the way, all the solutions are in the books.
Yeah.
It's not an economic problem, as a matter of fact. The problem is which solution you are going to choose, and politically, can you convince your people that this same policy would help them? Because you can use one policy and the opposite.
Yes.
And both of them can bring you to a good solution. Can we do that? So this depends on the government
Yes.
and its relations with the public opinion.
Yeah.
And the mass media has a big important role to explain to every single citizen what we are doing, because the support of the people is very important to make any policy a successful one.
Yeah. Sir, have the geographical and historical factors here influenced the ties between the African states and the Arab world?
We are, of course, part of the Arab world, part of Africa.
Yeah.
And the good thing that we have a free trade area with 18 Arab countries. We have a free trade area with more than 50 African countries,
Yeah.
where our trade is totally free out of any custom duties or any trade barriers. We are doing this. And I hope this will lead us to much bigger volume of trade and also investment, because one attraction to invest in Egypt, that we say Egypt is not only a market of 100 million. No, we are open to Africa, or open to the Arab world,
Yes.
and to the European Union.
Indeed.
It is a market of 2,000 million inhabitants.
Yes.
This is how our foreign relations is becoming at the top of its success.
Yeah.
And always I mention that Cairo is one capital where it's hosting most of the countries of the world,
Yeah.
representing in Egypt. This is a success, and we have to build on it.
Yes. Sir, how would you here describe the role of Egypt historically in boosting ties between the African and Arab worlds?
The good thing that half of the Arab world are African. And by the way, the Africans, we are a very acceptable face in Africa.
Yeah.
Why? Because we are white, and they are proud that there are white Africans. Why? Because we are black. Tutankhamun was black. Why? Because we have Al-Azhar al-Sharif and its efforts in Africa, teaching to people, hosting tens of thousands of Africans are studying in Al-Azhar and our universities. Also, our Orthodox Church is having a good position in many African countries.
Yes.
So we have all the ways and means to strengthen our relations with Africa and to make it even widen and more deep.
Yes. Sir, how are the global crises here impacting the intra-regional trade between Africa and the Arab world?
Africa is suffering, and we are in a sort of unfair situation.
Yes.
The flow of money coming out of Africa towards the developed countries is much more than it receives, because Africa is paying its debt, it's paying its invoice of imports more than it receives of investment or receives as the result of its exports.
Yes.
And Egypt is trying to convince the developed world, whether in Europe or America, and China is positively with us, Japan also, in order to invest in Africa more and more, to make a sort of more flow of
Yes.
money in Africa, to make a sort of balance in this situation.
Yes. Sir, how can the Arab-African cooperation here help both regions to overcome the current challenges?
We both are suffering, but it's a good element that we have some of our Arab countries have a sort of surplus in money. I'm talking about the oil producers, whether in the Gulf or Algeria. They can help in financing many African projects. And we have the Egyptian experience, which is very old, and it would be a good help in order to make a mixture between those who are the needy countries in Africa and those who have surplus in finance.
Yeah.
And as you well know, every now and then we have conferences, a combination between the Arab world and Africa, and we are on it. I hope we shall reach better and better relations between Arabs and Africans.
Yes. Ambassador Bayoumi, strategists say that a lot depends on the Arab world in order to maintain a broad solidarity with Africa as a sound foundation for an Afro-Arab diplomatic and economic front. Why here is the responsibility being laid more on the Arab world?
Because, as I said at the beginning, that all of us, we are not in a very good health.
Indeed.
The whole world is suffering from many problems. We are suffering our regional problems also. But even so, we are trying to make the situation bearable. And this is what we are doing. And I hope, of course, with meetings like the one in Algeria, meetings like the many meetings in Africa every now and then,
Yes.
will make us exchange views and exchange positions, and we come at the end with solutions and positions which will help the situation to come to better situation.
Yes. Sir, what obstacles here are hindering the Arab world and Africa's path to more economic cooperation?
There are many, by the way. Bureaucracy is very bad. It makes your life not easy at all. Banking system, you don't have one bank in the whole African continent, which is we call first-class bank, which can give you a credit letter which is acceptable anywhere. Transport in Africa is not that good. Our airway companies do not reach every capital in Africa. Roads are not good. Maritime transport is limited because many of the African, or most of the African ports cannot receive big tankers or big ships. And this is a problem. So if you want to send merchandise from Egypt to any African country, you have to go first to the Gulf to change the ship to a smaller one, then you send it to Africa. Many obstacles are there, and with time and with consistent efforts, we shall reach better situation, of course.
Yes. Sir, we cannot wrap up here our questions without tackling the Libyan file, which should be a top priority in the discussions here or the agenda of the Arab Summit. How do you see here the Arab world or the Arab Summit tackling the repercussions and the situation of the Libyan crisis or the Libyan situation?
We have very important task in Libya, even in Yemen also, because the war in Yemen is not less than the confrontation in Libya. The problem, I cannot understand it as Egyptian, because if you are from Alexandria and I am from Aswan, we both feel that we are Egyptians. This is not the case in Yemen or Libya. Tribes and parties, even in Lebanon, even in Syria. So we want to convince them to feel that a united country is much better than a united tribe or party.
Of course.
So it takes a long time in order to make them realize. But Libya, of course, we have a big impact there because we have 2 million Egyptians living in Libya.
Yeah.
If you drive your car at the desert road between Cairo and Alexandria, you will meet hundreds of cars coming and going to Libya. So Libya is very important to us. It's our immediate border. And I hope this will help in order to help the Libyans themselves to sit together and to elect one united government under one united country and flag.
Yes. Sir, also the situation in Lebanon is getting more and more complicated today, even with the president leaving office. So how do you see here the Arab world tackling the Lebanese crisis until this moment when it's getting more and more complicated, unfortunately?
Lebanon is relatively in a better situation because although Lebanon is divided in many tribes and parties, but
yes,
they are more civilized, by the way.
Yeah.
I depend on this because they succeeded all over the years to live together and to exchange benefits in their country. The problem that financially Lebanon is suffering from
yes,
a financial crisis, and I think the Arab world will help because we have good experience with Lebanon. We should help Lebanon to have a sort of agreement with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank and the international financial bodies in order to resume its activity as a very important part of the Arab world economically and in tourism and in many trade and services also. So I hope that Lebanon, because the Lebanese are much better in treating each other.
Yes, indeed. Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Always a pleasure to listen to your precious input, sir. Thank you very much for being our guest today. And moving on to the Chinese-African Cooperation Forum, which was held in the Tanzanian capital of Dar es Salaam. The forum is a platform for China and African countries to conduct consultations and carry out pragmatic cooperation. Samah Sharif has more details.
Conference on China-Africa Cooperation through the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, FOCAC, agreed that the forum has helped in bolstering friendship and cooperation between China and Africa. Opening the conference on Thursday in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Tanzania's Zanzibar Minister for Trade and Industrial Development, Omar Shaban, said FOCAC, established in 2000, is helping Africa to realize industrialization. The FOCAC was an effective platform and multilateral mechanism for China and African countries to conduct collective consultations and carry out pragmatic cooperation. Shaban told the conference, jointly hosted by the Chinese Embassy in Tanzania and the Center for International Policy Africa CIP, that FOCAC is raising African countries' status in the global industry and supply chains. The CIP is a regional think tank that analyzes pressing global challenges and contributes to actionable steps that leaders and citizens can adapt to address them. Shaban said Africa's trust in Sino-African cooperation is a result of China's favorable and deliverable policy toward the continent, which he said is based on sincerity, equality, mutual benefit, and common development aimed at building a community with a shared future for mankind. The Chinese ambassador to Tanzania, Chen Mingjian, said the FOCAC is a successful example of mutual assistance and common development among developing countries. Chen said that since the establishment of the FOCAC, Chinese enterprises have built more than 10,000 kilometers of railways, nearly 100,000 kilometers of roads, around 1,000 bridges, nearly 100 ports, and a large number of hospitals and schools in Africa. He said such projects made outstanding contributions to improving infrastructure and enhancing independent development capacity in Africa.
A new Zulu king was formally enthroned As the head of South Africa's most influential traditional monarchy at the colourful ceremony on Saturday attended by tens of thousands. President Cyril Ramaphosa handed over a giant-framed certificate officially recognizing the 48-year-old new ruler Zulu in the coastal city of Durban. More details.
A new Zulu king has been crowned at a historic event attended by thousands in South Africa's coastal city of Durban. King Misuzulu Ka Zwelithini was formally acknowledged as monarch by President Cyril Ramaphosa, who gave him a certificate of recognition. The ceremony was the first Zulu coronation since South Africa became a democracy in 1994. It ends a long and bitter tussle to find a successor for King Goodwill Zwelithini, who died last year. He was the longest reigning Zulu monarch, having served on the throne for almost 50 years. He had 6 wives and at least 26 children. The sudden death of King Misuzulu's mother, a month after being named Queen Regent, following her husband's death, further deepened a power struggle in the royal court. Prince Bambindluvu Zulu said he believed that his brother would unify the monarchy and his people. In his first speech after the coronation, King Misuzulu said that he had embarked on a journey with the community and hoped to be a catalyst to bring about positive change.
Well, with that, our dear viewers, we come to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Till tomorrow is another quiz. Goodbye. Many thanks for watching.